What if the tide of war suddenly shifted, not on the battlefield with tanks and missiles, but in the skies, on the seas, and deep inside Russia's own infrastructure? What if every move Moscow makes is being shadowed by a wave of Ukrainian innovation, leaving Russian troops scrambling, generals panicking, and Putin himself facing the most humiliating setbacks of the war so far? Tonight, the story of this conflict takes a dramatic turn, one that reveals just how fragile Russia's grip really is. Let's begin with the numbers that paint a grim picture for Moscow. Russia's human losses now stand at more than 184,000 military personnel. Just in the past 24 hours, an additional 780 soldiers were added to that staggering toll, but it's not just men being lost, it's also machines. The most recent data shows Russia losing one tank, four armored personnel carriers, and 41 artillery systems in a single day. This is not the image of an army advancing with unstoppable force, but one of a military being steadily ground down. And yet, there is something even more revealing hidden inside these figures. Recent analysis of tank losses by type shows a troubling pattern for Moscow: the reappearance of ancient Soviet era T 55 tanks. As the war drags on, Russia has been forced to reactivate these relics of the past, rolling them out of storage because their modern arsenal has been shattered. Imagine that, a so-called modern military power relying on technology from the mid-20th century. It is a sign not of strength, but of desperation. But tanks are only the beginning. Look at the map today, and you'll see Russian regions lighting up with explosions, stretching from Smolensk near Moscow all the way to the Black Sea. Even pro-Russian military bloggers are sounding the alarm. Rybar, one of the Kremlin's own mouthpieces, admitted that Ukrainian drone and naval drone strikes in Crimea were devastating. He described waves of UAVs launched from Odessa and Mykolaiv, dozens at a time, flying at different speeds and altitudes to overwhelm Russian defenses. And if that wasn't enough, Ukrainian naval drones were spotted drifting silently in the Black Sea, waiting for their chance to strike. And strike they did. Ukraine unveiled its Mura V7 naval drone, a fearsome weapon equipped with R-73 air-to-air missiles. This drone has already rewritten military history by becoming the first sea-based platform to shoot down a Russian Su-30 fighter jet. Let that sink in for a moment. A drone launched from the sea, sinking not ships, but an aircraft in the skies. It's a revolutionary weapon that has forced the Russian Black Sea Fleet to retreat eastward to safer harbors in Krasnodar. That retreat isn't just a tactical move, it's an admission of weakness, a moment that fundamentally reshaped how naval warfare will be fought in the future. And the strikes keep coming. In Krasnodar Krai, near the Russian naval base itself, fresh explosions erupted in Anapa. Local sources reported a radar site being struck overnight, possibly including an S-300 air defense system. For a country that prides itself on controlling the skies, losing such radar capabilities is nothing short of humiliating. Meanwhile, in Rostov, another Ukrainian UAV crashed near the Katinikovo station, taking out power in the rail network and causing cascading disruptions. Dozens of trains were left stranded, and Russian railways confirmed that at least 26 trains were delayed. Railroads are the arteries of Russian logistics. A single outage can cripple the movement of supplies and reinforcements. This wasn't just an inconvenience, it was an asymmetrical strike that rippled across the entire Russian supply chain, and the hits didn't stop there. In Siberia, an Il-76 military transport plane was forced into an emergency landing. This Soviet-era workhorse is the backbone of Russia's airlift capacity, responsible for moving troops and equipment across vast distances. But the Il-76 fleet is being pushed beyond its limits, flying more sorties than ever before to sustain the war effort. The emergency landing in Krasnoyarsk is part of a worrying trend. Moscow's aging aircraft are breaking down under the pressure. Each mishap chips away at Russia's ability to supply its forces in Ukraine, exposing a vulnerability that cannot be ignored. On the front lines, the picture is no better. In the Donetsk region, Russian forces made small advances around certain villages, but their push along the key highway leading to Zaporizhzhia was stopped cold by Ukrainian defenders. Instead, Ukraine struck back. In the north, Ukraine's 425th Separate Assault Regiment liberated the central part of Novo-Komishivka, consolidating new bridgeheads across the river into Miralivka. These gains may appear incremental, but they stretch Russian forces thin and force Moscow to defend on multiple fronts. To the west, Ukraine's Skala regiment spent 2 weeks clearing the village of Udakny house by house until they raised their flag over the settlement. Every inch of ground regained in this grinding fight sends a message: Russia cannot hold what it takes, but Russia still dreams big. Reports now suggest Moscow is preparing a massive autumn offensive aimed at capturing all of Donetsk, yet their spring and summer offensives have already failed. To expect a breakthrough now is like cramming for an exam after skipping the entire semester. The Kremlin has even redeployed its so-called elite marine units from Sumy and Kherson to Donetsk, hoping they might be the missing piece. But this only raises new questions. What happens to the territories they've left behind? If Donetsk is prioritized, Sumy and Kherson become vulnerable. Russia wants to be everywhere at once, but reality doesn't bend to Moscow's ambitions. And for all of Russia's claims about protecting Russian-speaking people in the Donbass, the reality on the ground tells another story. Residents in Donetsk and Luhansk now suffer severe water shortages, a problem dating back to Russia's original 2014 invasion. Today, it's worse than ever. Reports reveal that Russian soldiers are stealing water from locals, driving through neighborhoods in search of private tanks. Occupation has brought not protection, but exploitation. On the battlefield, the destruction continues. Ukrainian forces recently obliterated a Russian BM-21 Grad multiple rocket launcher in Luhansk, showcasing how precision strikes are wearing down Moscow's arsenal. But not every Russian soldier meets his end so quickly. In one rare moment of luck, a Russian soldier filming himself on a motorcycle narrowly avoided a Ukrainian kamikaze drone. The footage shows the drone streaking past him, a near miss that demonstrates just how far Ukrainian drone technology has advanced. This wasn't some simple quadcopter, it was a fixed-wing drone with extended range, capable of striking targets tens of kilometers behind the front lines. And still, Russian logistics reveal their desperation. Reports indicate that Russian forces are dismantling their own BM-21 Grad rockets to strip out gunpowder charges. These charges are then reused in other weapons to make up for shortages. It's a far cry from the early days of the war, when Russia's overwhelming artillery firepower dominated the battlefield. Now, Moscow is forced to cannibalize its own arsenal, turning its once proud military machine into a patchwork of recycled parts, a so-called superpower scavenging from its own junkyards. It doesn't get more telling than that. But while Russia scrambles, the geopolitical stage is shifting as well. In Beijing, China staged its largest military parade in decades, with Xi Jinping warning that the world is at a crossroads between peace and war. Hypersonic missiles, nuclear systems, and swarms of drones rolled through Tiananmen Square in a chilling display of power. And yet, what stood out most wasn't the weapons, but the company. Standing together were Xi, Vladimir Putin, and for the first time in more than 60 years, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. The three strongmen hailed each other as dear friends and signed over 20 cooperation deals on energy, trade, and technology. For China, which claims neutrality in the Ukraine war, this was a bold step, one that revealed its true alignment. But what overshadowed even these alliances was an awkward hot mic moment. Putin and Xi were caught discussing organ transplants and the possibility of extending human life to 150 years. At one point, Putin even speculated about immortality through biotechnology. It was a surreal exchange, dictators fantasizing about ruling forever while their soldiers die daily in the mud of Ukraine. From collapsing logistics to humiliating battlefield setbacks, from stolen water tanks to desperate raids on old munitions, Russia's war effort is unraveling piece by piece. Meanwhile, Ukraine's innovations in drones, naval warfare, and asymmetric strikes are rewriting the rules of modern conflict. And as Moscow clings to unlikely dreams of a fall offensive, the reality is clear. This is not the war Russia planned, and it is certainly not the victory Putin promised. The world is watching as the cracks widen, and the question now is not if Russia's grip will break, but when.